Okay. Oh, hi, Product Champs. Welcome back to the Product Champ Studio, your go to channel for everything product. I'm Charity, your host, and today I'll be having a conversation with the amazing Dennis Gikunda, who, over the last 8 years, has been leading and executing product design vision for companies in e commerce, banking, clean energy, and many more. So, Dennis and I will be discussing his design approach and insights from one of his latest projects. And if you like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video with the product community. So, welcome to the show, Dennis. How are you?
Hi, Charity. How you doing?
I'm good too. I'm good too.
Yeah,
Really glad to have you on board. I can't wait to dig into some of the amazing work you've been doing.
yeah. Happy to be here. I like the work that
Yeah.
Product Champ is doing, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What are you doing right now? Yeah, and
Hmm.
your overall, like your design story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you probably said a bit about what I do. Product
Yeah.
designer.
Hmm.
Currently as a consultant with a company called Elevity,
Hmm.
where we help companies scale up. So whenever there are aspects of that scaling up that need design support, I get to contribute to that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm working with some quite incredible people over there.
Hmm.
Then before that, just previously I was working at Wasoko, which is a B2B e-commerce company. I believe currently even following the merge, it's the largest
Hmm.
e-commerce company in Africa.
Hmm.
That was quite an interesting and challenging environment that allowed me to grow quite a lot within the commerce
Hmm.
field, which you'll find has a lot of facets in other areas like logistics, warehousing systems, financial systems as well.
Hmm.
And before that, I was at a company called Oteo, which is a
Hmm.
fintech startup. Um, just helping businesses track their expenses, especially the
Hmm.
petty cash expenses that we all struggle with accounting or providing documentation for. Yeah, and then before that, there's a bit of banking and a bit of clean energy at Mkopa.
Hmm.
But my journey started out first as an electrical engineer,
Yeah.
but slowly
Okay.
found my way
Hmm.
into design. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm curious how that happened. Like from electrical engineering to design, it's a pretty big leap.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is, but for me
Hmm.
it was relatively easy in the sense that
Yeah.
while in campus, the people whom I hung out a lot with
Hmm.
were people in the tech space, in the tech
Hmm.
community.
Hmm.
It wasn't a pure electrical engineering course; it was electronics and computer engineering. So
Hmm.
um, there was a bit of scenarios where we get to connect with guys in the tech
Hmm.
space,
Yeah.
and then participating in tech forums, the
Hmm.
couple of Google events, Microsoft
Hmm.
events. That's how I first got my foray into tech. I
Hmm.
was initially doing a bit of front end development
Hmm.
and WordPress type of
Hmm.
websites and such things. And
Hmm.
then as I continued to do that, became more interested in
Hmm.
how do we ensure what we're building is useful for the consumer or the use of these
Yeah.
systems. And so
Yeah.
that's how I slowly got into design. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's similar to my journey as well, from geospatial engineering and then doing things like
Hmm.
Tech Expo back in uni and
Yeah.
interacting a lot with like tech people and then eventually landing somehow into design.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
believe
that's hmm
life is just a series of learning. If
exactly.
you're
Hmm.
consistently curious,
Hmm.
your career path will keep on modifying and
Exactly.
changing based on what you're
Hmm.
learning of who you are and how the world is and how you fit in that bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to talk a little bit about your design process. You maybe I know you'd prepared a project to show us
Mhm.
how you apply your design process. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure, sure. Let me
Yeah,
actually share my screen to be
great.
easier to do so.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So to share my process, I'll briefly touch on my process and then use a project to detail that. So let me share my screen.
Great.
Um, my design process, it's largely a process that involves learning.
Mm-hmm.
Start with what do you know, what don't you know, like what are the unknown unknowns that you need to find out, and
Mm-hmm.
then the building process. Who do you need to collaborate with? How do you arrive at something that you can ship swiftly as possible? And then once you've built, how do you measure the
Mm-hmm.
impact of what you've done? So
Mm-hmm.
within that, there's the discovery, which will entail what do you need to solve, and he largely trying to understand the problem that needs to be solved or the opportunity that's available.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of key activities there. I'll share this later on, and there are a
Mm-hmm.
couple of tools to use for that. Then once you've done that, then that means you've understood the problem that's worth tackling. So then, how do you go about that? So he really trying to explore the ways that to be able to deliver value. So there's the
Mm-hmm.
ideation,
Mm-hmm.
coming to an hypothesis that you need to test, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Then um, once you've gone through that, then you have a sense of the solution that will work. So then, how
Mm-hmm.
do you design this so that it will be able to actually get built by engineering? So
Mm-hmm.
that's largely delivering a user tested design that can be quickly shipped, and a couple of tools to assist in that. And
Mm-hmm.
then usually at times, if in my early days of design, or mostly lead the process at that point, because that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
really responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
But as we continue to mature in design, it's pretty important then to follow through with delivery and in terms of communicating it to the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
people who need to build this or ship it or interact with the customer pertaining the particular feature. So it's not just
Mm-hmm.
engineering, but also you're speaking to marketing, you're speaking
Yeah.
to customer your customer success team if you need
Yeah.
if you'll be interacting with the customers pertaining the particular feature or system that you've brought out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and also you're just setting an opportunity for cadence whereby you can follow up with all of these different stakeholders to find out is there any qualitative feedback that they're getting, what are the
Mm-hmm.
metrics saying, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So but just to break down the process further, I'll go through a project.
Mm-hmm.
But before I go through the project, since you already
Mm-hmm.
have this slide over here, I think what I
Yeah.
wanted to say is
Mm-hmm.
um, we've had the designer role
Mm-hmm.
being broken down into so many aspects, right? You have your visual designer, you have your
Yeah.
interaction designer, you have what else? You have your researcher, you have,
Mm-hmm.
and even in research, there's quite a lot. Then you
Mm-hmm.
also have your UX analyst and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But my domain is product design, and how I see it is that um, you are first of all the advocate of your customer, and
Mm-hmm.
then secondly, you do need to understand um, how the business wins and how the business
Mm-hmm.
makes money and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So this diagram by Noah kind of really assist in communicating the intersections at which a product
Mm-hmm.
designer plays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now to the
Yes.
project.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
going to ask one of the
Mm-hmm.
questions I listed maybe for
Mm.
further down, but in this slide. So I'm curious,
Okay.
like, as you can see, I think from the slide that you're sharing, there's like a lot of overlap between
Hmm.
PM and design, and we know PM spends a lot of time like with business and different stakeholders, kind of
Hmm.
gathering that context. So how do you, from the product design perspective, how do you ensure that yourself and your team is consistently also working to gather that same context and constantly working to make sure that the designs that you're putting out or that the solutions you're developing are
Hmm.
in line with the company goals, company vision, the business model, and yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So you rightly put it. It's
Mhm.
clearly or it's usually the responsibility of the PM to have that
Yeah.
an understanding of how the business will win.
Mhm.
So as a designer, you may not necessarily have to go through that process of figuring that out on your own.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
leverage what the PM has already done.
Mhm.
So and in a way you're also assisting him to ensure that
Mhm.
what you're getting to work on is super high
Yeah.
priority. So if
Yeah.
in the kickoff he's presenting this product requirements document or user
Mhm.
story, and
Mhm.
you're not seeing the genesis of what is how will this move the needle of the key business
Mhm.
objective for your quarter or for your
Mhm.
half year? How is
Mhm.
it tied to the revenue that you're hoping to make? Is this feature going to either increase revenue or be a cost reduction? Like
Mhm.
try and see, is that documented within the document that you're being provided
Mhm.
with, and if not,
Mhm.
then that's your first port of call.
Mhm.
Question him on that, yeah.
Mhm.
And at times if he has that information, you may just not have provided in that particular document, so he'll be
Mhm.
happy to feel that you on that. um,
Mhm.
and then, secondly, it's um, don't be in a cocoon of your product
Yeah.
people alone.
Mhm.
Find opportunities of having audience with other people in business, right?
Mhm.
So, if
Mhm.
you're a product designer, say, um, in well, let me just go with the commerce field,
Mhm.
and you're responsible for the customer facing side of things,
Mhm.
like the customer app.
Mhm.
The people who will in business will be looking at that a lot will be guys in marketing and guys in sales.
Mhm.
So there'll be someone in sales who is responsible for the sales that'll be generated through the customer app, because that's a sales channel of its own, right?
Mhm.
And marketing are also responsible for the promotions and those different campaigns that need to run there,
Yeah.
and they have specific business metrics on that.
Mhm.
So have discussions with them and
Mhm.
find out what the targets do they have.
Mhm.
How are they hoping to involve design
Mhm.
of a product
Mhm.
in meeting these particular objectives? So
Mhm.
when you align with them in terms of the objectives that they've set,
Mhm.
then you're a clear partner
Mhm.
in driving for results. Yeah,
That's true.
that's
That's
what I
true. And I
think.
think
Yeah.
it echoes a sentiment that you mentioned earlier. This is something, the more you mature as a designer, it's something that you start to do more because most designers kind of think to silo themselves in the design, simply like I'm in Figma and after Figma, that's where I start and end. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really good to clarify this and emphasize on this. All right. I think
Yeah, and yeah, and also growth, is that it's usually an
yeah.
intersection of where you're starting to feel
Hmm.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm quite introverted, so
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
doesn't feel my place to go
Yeah.
and start interacting with them. But
Mhm.
since you, as a designer, I think one tenet or skill that you
Mhm.
really seek to hone is that curiosity, that
Yeah.
aspect of trying to understand how things work and
Mhm.
how the business make money, how you earn in a salary and
Yeah,
so on and such things. So your
exactly.
curiosity then should hopefully push you towards those uncomfortable situations. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
first of it could be first of all shadowing the PM
Yeah.
in those particular conversations. Most likely the
Mm-hmm.
PM is quite seasoned in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Could be listening to the OKR meetings and that are being
Mm-hmm.
set up by the company, or your weekly business reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think uh, whoever is senior to you will have any qualms
Mm-hmm.
with you listening into such
True.
conversations. So
That's
just
true.
go there and seek to listen, seek to ask questions
Yeah.
as you continue to understand these things. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I think I like, for me, I think I like specifically how this helps you, design different options, present multiple different alternatives that, you
Hmm.
know, you can choose from, and then argue for a design or versus or against a
Hmm.
design, based on the knowledge that you have, the business knowledge that you have. So I think it's really interesting. So
Hmm.
we can move on to the next slide, I
Yes.
think. Yeah, so I'm curious how you
Yeah.
apply this in a project
Yeah.
context. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what I'll be using to share that is this
Mm-hmm.
particular project that I've done, whereby we're
Yeah.
improving the customer journey from the moment they have an intent to make a purchase to the moment
Mm-hmm.
that that purchase has been completed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about the triggers for that. Eh, and you're thinking about the experience within the application,
Mm-hmm.
and you're thinking post purchase, what are they anticipating and what are they hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I would say, that's a red route.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had, I believe you've had that terminology before.
Mm-hmm.
Red route, as like what the critical places whereby
Mm-hmm.
the customer actions are tied to business value. So
Mm-hmm.
that purchase journey is one of
Mm-hmm.
those red routes. So
Mm-hmm.
anything touching there,
Mm-hmm.
their chance, it's a huge risk
Mm-hmm.
if you get it wrong, or there's a huge
Mm-hmm.
upside if you get it right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll just move on, and then I'll describe how we got this project live, or how we got it to be completed.
Mm-hmm.
So um, we've already mentioned about how
Yeah.
to understand how the business works.
Mm-hmm.
Here, probably I'll just say, Survivor puts it very well, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
seeking to outwit, to outplay,
And
and to
outlast.
outlast everyone
Yeah.
else
Mm-hmm.
in your field, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's really that you're really trying to understand how does your business win
Mm-hmm.
versus everyone else, and everyone else is not just your direct competitor.
Yeah.
You need to find out what are your customers hiring to get their
Mm-hmm.
job done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there'll be somewhere about speak to that.
Okay.
But yeah, so try and
Yeah.
much as possible to understand how your business
Mm-hmm.
works.
Yeah.
So, uh
Mhm.
huh, yeah,
On that, I think you'd mentioned a few things on that slide. Please go back one slide
okay,
and we can discuss a little bit more when you're talking about knowing, what makes your company different, being aware of risks in the ecosystem. So I'm curious, and maybe I'm jumping the gun, and you're going to talk about this at some point. But how do you go about designing, sort of experiments that uncover the insights you need you know, to kind of de-risk a potential direction that the company is considering, or you're considering, or to propose as a
yeah.
design. Yeah.
Um, I think the risking you as I think you've put it rightly. You want to conduct it as an
Hmm.
experiment. You have
Yeah.
an hypothesis that if this solution gets built, it will be
Hmm.
able to lead to
Mhm.
X percent increase in our sales, or
Mhm.
X percent decrease in our costs, right?
Mhm.
Um, so then you want to simply arrive at, will this be true?
Mhm.
If you're going to build that solution and then take it to
Mhm.
market and
Yeah.
find that out, um,
Mhm.
you've already taken the risk. So in that
Mm.
case, whatever outcome will be,
Mhm.
you may not be able to pivot swiftly, right? So you want to
Mhm.
find that out as early as possible, and
Mhm.
that's the beauty of design.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you're understanding the problem, by listening to the different voices of the customer,
Mhm.
and you know, doing a couple of research tasks whereby you
Mhm.
intervene the customers involved,
Mhm.
then you're creating a segment of people to test with.
Mhm.
You'll have your different solutions or ideas, and then
Mhm.
have a prototype that's as close as possible to the actual solution, and
Mhm.
observe how people will use that, get
Mhm.
qualitative feedback from
Mhm.
that, then ensure that whatever solution that you have
Mhm.
uh, is in the smallest uh, bite-sized way that it can be executed. What do
Mhm.
I mean by that? So if
Mhm.
your company, say, has a 1 week sprint cycle or a 2 week
Mhm.
sprint cycle, ensure
Mhm.
that, try and find a way of ensuring that your solution end to end can fit
Yeah.
in uh, one cycle. It may be a series of cycles, but
Mhm.
let each aspect of your solution be able to
Mhm.
be to get to a customer
Mhm.
within one cycle of that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so with that, then you know that can be tested to
Yeah.
a certain customer segment.
Mhm.
You can work with engineering to say target
Mhm.
this customer type or this
Mhm.
segment, either by
Mhm.
area or sales volumes and so on.
Yeah.
They can assist you in doing that math, but
Mhm.
yeah. So in a nutshell, if
Mhm.
we could summarize.
Yeah.
Um, uh, First of all, the pre-research work assists you
Mhm.
will
Mhm.
assist you in de-risking. Then,
Mhm.
secondly, doing prototypes and testing it out with actual customers
Mhm.
will do that as well. Then, minifying your solution into
Mhm.
um, the into a package that can be delivered in the shortest amount of
Mhm.
as possible to
Mhm.
a set number of users.
Yeah.
Then also that assists in the risking. And the reason why I'm saying a set number of users, that is because
Mhm.
if it fails with that number of users, then you
Mhm.
can shut that down quickly.
Yeah.
And not so many
Mhm.
people have been impacted by that particular experiment.
Yeah.
Um, and if it works out so well, you will have even resolved any technical issues that may have
Mm.
occurred in that particular release, and then you're able
Yeah.
to safely deploy that to everyone else.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that does help.
That's true. I
De-risking.
really like that you said that. It echoes, I think, what our previous guest Giri was saying. You need to be able to test quickly and cheaply, and
Yeah.
just packaging, your experiment in a bite-sized way and having that specificity of it's targeting this specific people, and we're going to measure it against this set of metrics that you said you work
Hmm.
like with your PM
Hmm.
to define. It just helps you, I believe, to like test things very quickly and understand. Like what lies ahead if you want to pursue that
Yeah.
direction. Yeah,
Very
that's
true.
really interesting. It's nice that you said that. I like that summary that you did with all those points. I think this is probably a resource we can create. Like, hey,
Ah.
here's a checklist for how to design experiments that
Hmm. Hmm.
are uncovering
Hmm.
risk or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm
Mhm.
a big fan of
Mhm.
checklists.
Yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, certainly I use it for my
Yeah.
designs, for the design
Hmm.
reviews. I think the
Yeah.
moment you're done with a design, to be sure that everything is okay, it's just good to
Yeah.
go through like a checklist. Is this is in the design system? Have you considered
Yeah.
error states?
Exactly.
Have you considered
Hmm.
when there's a lot of amount of data, or when there's
Hmm.
zero data?
Mm,
So likewise, yes, you can also have a
yeah.
checklist for um, uh, for testing your
Mhm.
hypothesis, right? How do you know
Yeah.
you're ready?
Mhm.
And then, yeah, all those things that we've talked about could be in that
Exactly.
particular
Yeah.
checklist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I think we can move on to the next thing now, which was what's
Yeah.
think? No, no. Let's skip.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
This one is just speaking about how you need to
Mm.
understand the business. This
Mhm.
is to give further context about
Mhm.
Osoko's business, so that as we go
Mhm.
along the case study, you could understand how those particular
Yeah.
improvements are trying to um, improve or provide greater
Mhm.
business value. So this
Mhm.
is a bit generalized,
Mhm.
just for IP aspects, but
Yeah.
basically,
Mhm.
we at Wasoko we used to say that the our focus, our primary focus
Mhm.
for everyone in the company is how can we ensure the
Mhm.
communities of the people that are involved with are getting more for less. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, that means are we able to provide the best prices? Do you have
Mhm.
the largest variety? Um,
Mhm.
are you a reliable person?
Mhm.
And I find that's the particular trifecta of
Mhm.
items. It's not that
Mhm.
easy to arrive at. It
Yeah.
sounds obvious, but it's just the logistics aspects
Mhm.
involved, procurement, and so on, make
Mhm.
this quite a delicate balancing.
Mhm.
So, achieving that, then if
Mhm.
you achieve that, you are in certain ways ensuring that your communities are getting more for less.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so based off that, as most companies are,
Mhm.
you need to ensure that you whatever you're working on will lead to the profitability
Mhm.
of that particular company.
Yeah.
Um, Especially in this economy and
Mhm.
um, with all that's happening in funding and so on. So
Yeah.
that's a very key aspect as well.
Mhm.
So then, so you've
Mhm.
understood the business, then you need to understand your customer.
Mhm.
So, usually we tend to think of ourselves as the
Yeah.
customer advocate, right?
Mhm.
And we rightfully need to be the customer advocate.
Mhm.
Uh, but we need to also understand that we are not the only people speaking to the
To
customers on a
customers.
daily basis,
Mhm.
right? Um, Especially this particular arc,
Mhm.
you'll find you have your
Mhm.
salespeople constantly speaking with potential customers. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
then your support. This is your telesales or your account managers and so on.
Mhm.
They're constantly getting feedback from their existing customer on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis,
Mhm.
right? And then
Mhm.
marketing is constantly looking into, oh, what exists out there in the market, how are other players trying to win in this particular market, how
Mhm.
are customers resonating with
Mhm.
our messaging and so on, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's important to have ways of um listening to all these different
Yeah.
voices when you're considering what problem to solve or how to build
Mhm.
your solution. Yeah.
Yeah, which
Uh,
makes me think like, so you have all these different people that are all talking to your customers. So how do you go about like consolidating information from all these people? And then how do you then create some kind of framework for integrating this back into the work that you're doing or scheduling it and prioritizing when you're going to include what feature, for example, or what solution based on the feedback that you're getting? You can talk a little bit about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so when you've received a particular
Mhm.
brief from the PM,
Mhm.
or say if it's a design initiated
Mhm.
item that you want to solve or build for, then um, it's also from that particular aspect of a checklist perspective. Ask yourself, do you have feedback from sales about this? Have you had a session with telesales or marketing pertaining this? So it's also it helps if you've created relationships with these people, so that you can quickly send out a chat. Hey, I'm looking into solving this particular problem. Probably this is what I have in my research repository. Is there any new insight that you may have pertaining this? What have you recently had? So, just quick chats could try and um, assist in coalescing that. Obviously, the scenarios whereby you need to have deeper conversations, or say like a focus group of sorts. If the particular problem is within, say, support or within sales, then you want to dig deeper. But first, start with what do you currently know. What's in your research repository? What can you
Mhm.
ask in um, a quick chat, or
Mhm.
through Slack or your Google chat and so on.
Mhm.
Yeah, then um, see how that assists you in having clarity on how you need to build
Mhm.
what you need to build. And at times, these conversations are even assisting you in crafting
Yeah.
your research guideline, right?
Mhm.
You're doing your research plan. Um, when you have the conversations with these guys, you'll have a bit more of what you need to go out and ask your
Mhm.
customer, or dig deeper on. Yeah,
Mm. That's true. It kind of uncovers for you what do we already know, what are we
yeah,
assuming, and how can we
hmm
explore the unknown. Yeah,
yeah. I
I think
couldn't
that's
have put it any
yeah,
better than how you've just said. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and then so once you've already like added all this, you've had all these
Yeah,
conversations. You've
you
what do you
basically
say?
have all these aspects
Yeah.
coalesced in some
Mhm.
document. Um,
Mhm.
so then, in that case, you're ready to do
Mm.
proper research.
Mhm.
Um, and here, it's needs to be
Mm.
proper research,
Mm.
of
Yeah.
which, this Gifata
Yeah.
is often the reality.
Yeah.
We want to
Mm.
say we've done research, but probably this is
Mhm.
a very light desktop research that has happened,
That's true.
or
Yeah.
your CEO told you something,
Mm.
and you took it as the only information that you needed. So,
Yeah.
yeah, try as much as possible to
Yeah.
make it a habit, a culture,
Mhm.
actually, of doing research.
That's
So,
true.
obviously, different
Mhm.
companies, you may be resource constrained. Research
Mhm.
is not a cheap exercise, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, um, see how that can work out for your team.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, we've worked. I wouldn't say we've been blessed with lots
Mhm.
of resources.
Yeah.
So it's just, how do you manage your team to have a
Mhm.
cadence for research? How do you
Mhm.
set aside a specific time for research work to be done?
Mhm.
And so if it's done in that regular, continuous
Mhm.
way, then
Mhm.
whenever there's any incoming project to work, you'll know
Mhm.
how that will fit in. You'll be able
Exactly.
to sideline research, because then it's become
Mhm.
a habit. Yeah.
That's true.
So,
I think
yeah.
another thing for that I try to do on my side is kind of like weigh the research effort and research like how much time will it take, how much resources will it need versus the impact, for example, of this thing or the level of risk. So like if this particular assumption is wrong, like how detrimental is that to the
Yeah.
to the product or to the solution? Or how impactful is it going to be on the customer like experience or something, and then that way you're able to determine, okay, I think I'll just do like a light 1 day 2 day thing
Yeah.
versus I will wrangle four
Very true.
different stakeholders over the week and do like a full on design sprint. So like kind of finding ways to to decide how much effort you want to put into your
Yeah.
research without skipping it altogether, I think is
True.
important. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, so in certain projects, you may even go to the
Yeah.
customer already with a solution, right? Because
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
your repository
Yeah.
was useful enough
Mhm.
in knowing, okay, if you're to build this particular solution this particular way,
Mhm.
it's most likely going to be like it's most likely going to be a good bet. So
Mhm.
in that case, you're skipping certain steps and you're going
Yeah.
straight to the user
Mhm.
with a preconceived solution,
Mhm.
and then you're collecting feedback based off that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so definitely, yeah, weigh your time as well
Mhm.
that you have, and
Mhm.
see what best to employ in the particular situation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's true. All right.
So like in our case,
Mhm.
we mapped out the current purchase journey flow,
Mhm.
and as we did that, we also ensuring that
Mhm.
we are within the context of who our customer is, and
Mhm.
in our case, our customer is a customer who is looking for the best price
Mhm.
as possible. So they're not just on Wasoko, they're also looking at other apps, they're also making
Yeah.
other calls and trying to
Yeah.
see where can I get unga or
Mhm.
sugar in the best price
Mhm.
possible. So they the loyalty aspect
Mhm.
uh, comes probably second after
Mhm.
if price and reliability of delivery, right? You may find
Mhm.
someone
Mhm.
has the best price, but they're known to take
Yeah.
ages to deliver that item, right? And
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
not getting it for your own consumption, you're getting it to sell to
To
other
sell.
customers.
Yeah.
So timing is key and price is key.
Mhm.
So we had a proper understanding of what our customer is. We
Mhm.
mapped out the current flow and doing heuristic review of what are the problem areas
Mhm.
against that. What are the business needs that we are hearing?
Mhm.
So as you're doing that, you're uh, progressively seeing what a potential ideal flow would look like. Yeah. um, and then that's now when you get to the other side of what we have as a double diamond, right? How can you deliver the best possible
Mhm.
solution? So once
Mhm.
you've done your research,
Mhm.
then my approach, especially if I
Mhm.
have a team,
Yeah.
is to synthesize that as a team.
Mhm.
Um, so probably you started off with understanding the problem together.
Mhm.
Everyone is assigned different tasks for research. Then,
Mhm.
um, once that research work has been done, it's important to converge and have a synthesis session
Mhm.
that uh, s- to ensure that everyone
Mhm.
is aligned on the
Mhm.
problem that is to be solved and the
Mhm.
learnings from the customer and so on. Then
Mhm.
the next bit is how can you have as many as possible solutions, right? And
Mhm.
this is where I encourage people to do paper sketches. It's the
Mhm.
fastest way to
Yeah.
visualize your potential solution. So don't rush to Figma for your high
Mhm.
fidelity designs. Just
Mhm.
start off with sketches because as you're sketching, you also probably even visualizing another idea, and then you'll sketch that, and so
Mhm.
there's a lot of improvement happening right on
Mhm.
paper, and
Mhm.
it's within minutes, right?
That's true.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So once you have that, then
Mhm.
you know f- have a quick discussion on what's the best possible solution that will create
Mhm.
maximum value for the customer and also
Mhm.
maximum possible value for the business, right? So
Mhm.
that time you're converging uh, at, at either an amalgamation of different paper sketches or one
Mhm.
particular paper sketch of an idea,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
and then that's now where you go to design. And to do
Mhm.
that, I encourage people to progressively have a design system that allows them to
Mhm.
spit out the high
Mhm.
fidelity designs as quickly as possible.
That's
Um,
true. Yeah.
and I think the case study that's connected to this on Notion has a few
Mhm.
steps for establishing a design system as
Mhm.
swiftly as possible. Yeah, and
That's
so once you have that, then make it into a prototype that's as close as possible to the real solution
Mhm.
that you can go out back to the users to test. And
Mhm.
uh, usually for test, I prefer or one of the methods that one should
Mhm.
employ the most is observations. Give
Mhm.
someone a solution. Yes, you can set the context, but
Mhm.
observe how they use
Mhm.
it, and
Mhm.
encourage them to speak through their
Yeah.
actions, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and as you do that, you learn a lot. Even before
Mhm.
now, you have like structured questions
Mhm.
or case scenarios that you'd like them to explore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Something that you're measuring against what you're observing.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I think
Um,
this is pretty good.
so now the
Mm-hmm.
next slides are
Mm-hmm.
largely speaking to how
Yeah.
the solution came to be.
Mm-hmm.
And even as I speak through it, uh,
Mm-hmm.
one of the ways, and I think Figma is
Mm-hmm.
the new features that will even allow for
Yeah.
showing the previous and the new. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
something recently released, but
Mm-hmm.
whether that feature exists or doesn't, at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, I would say it's extremely important to always
Mm-hmm.
do contrast when you want to communicate to everyone
Mm-hmm.
else.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear. It's important to show, okay, how is this
Mm-hmm.
different from what exists,
Mm-hmm.
uh, especially if the project was a project that involved improving something that didn't
Mm-hmm.
exist before. If it's a new
Mm-hmm.
project, they may not necessarily need that, but you probably in that particular scenario may need to communicate how this is different, or how
Mm-hmm.
from what exists in your market, or
Mm-hmm.
basically answering how this will win over the market, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in this particular case, starting off with once the customer lands on your app,
Mm-hmm.
how are they able to move from intent to purchase? And so there's
Mm-hmm.
just a few improvements that we're doing, like even
Mm-hmm.
just from the very top
Mm-hmm.
search, you'll find 30 to
Mm-hmm.
35% of customers in e-commerce, that would be their
Mm-hmm.
first port of call. They already know the
Mm-hmm.
product that's out of stock. They want to quickly get to that and be able to add. So if you have
Mm-hmm.
that um, visually uh,
Yeah, prominent.
uh, prominent, yes,
Yeah.
then the better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then now, from a business perspective, you
Mm-hmm.
have certain um, uh, items that you want your customer to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
say, for instance, now in the business of a soko,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's costly to deliver an order
Mm-hmm.
from point A to point B. If that particular order is of a
Mm-hmm.
low uh, uh, value, right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
cost is constant. Your mafuta
Mm-hmm.
from point A to B is still the same whether you're delivering a huge item
Mm-hmm.
or a small item, right?
Mm, that's true.
Um, yeah, it's obviously a huge item
Yeah.
may be a bit more mafuta, but it's not. It's negligible, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
generally the same because they're still employing the same driver and so on at the same
Mm-hmm.
cost.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, there's that particular need. But how you communicate to a customer is from
Mm-hmm.
an aspect of why should I care, right? The customer
Yeah.
just wants
Mm-hmm.
that pack of sweets only.
Yeah.
He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't care about the fact that you have
Yeah.
to fuel your car, to pay your driver to bring this to
Mm-hmm.
you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, presenting that business need in a customer perspective, that's then how you're thinking of such, or that's
Mm-hmm.
how you arrive to such a solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a starting the purchase journey, um, you're gamifying the experience to an extent. You're speaking of
Mm-hmm.
how they'll save, and this aspect of saving, it's also
Mm-hmm.
tied to a key business goal, right? Ensuring
Yeah.
that the customer is getting more for
Mm-hmm.
less. So, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
if they do reach our minimum order value,
Mm-hmm.
then they will have saved and thus be able to buy more
Yeah.
for less, and that will mean more value for them
Mm-hmm.
in their business, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So,
When you say minimum
uh
order value, that is in terms of what we want them to order minimally
yes,
or
yes,
for themselves, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. What we
The
want
latter.
them to, yes,
The
the latter. So, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
What we want them to order minimally, because at least
Mhm.
we know that if they reach this amount,
Mm.
then based on our calculations,
Yeah.
the fuel cost is well distributed. Yeah,
Mhm. Okay.
it's not a loss
Mhm.
making order in that
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
You see this
then,
a lot.
mhm,
Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
go on.
I'm saying I think you see this a lot with logistics companies, like even
Yeah.
Globe will have you like if you
Hmm.
order less than 800, then there's a surcharge because they call that
Yeah.
like single order just to optimize on
Yeah.
how they get it to you. All right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I would say communicate that
Mm-hmm.
um, as much as possible as early as possible. At times,
Mm-hmm.
people will hide that at the very end. So you
Mm.
get into
Yeah.
your order summary page and you're finding, oh, there's a
A
delivery fee.
surprise charge.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you straightforward and open to your
Mm-hmm.
customer from the very
Mm-hmm.
start, then it does provide even for better experience for the
Yeah.
customer.
Yeah.
And depending on your copy,
Mm-hmm.
the customer would find this as a deterrent for them placing the order, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
and showing progress
Mm-hmm.
is a good thing also. So
Mm-hmm.
in this particular scenario, is just showing that if you transition to if you've added something, how much more do you still need to add, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and once say a particular nudge has
Mm-hmm.
been arrived to, you don't need to stop at that. You could think of
Mm-hmm.
what are other valuable things that the customer can enjoy
Mhm,
that will also create business value, right? So in
mhm,
this particular case, if they add uh, Wasoko products,
mhm,
which you call a smart pick, then
mhm,
those are the high margin products for Wasoko. So if they
mhm,
add those particular products, then we can give them a discount on that, because then they are
mhm,
already products that have higher margin. So
mhm,
in that case, we're able to provide that particular benefit for the customer.
mhm,
Um, if they reach a particular um, order amount, then they can even pay that later at zero fee. They won't be
mhm,
charged for
mhm,
any interest. So,
mhm.
how structuring the incentives within
Yeah.
within the customer's purchase journey.
Mhm,
It feels like interesting milestones or targets
yeah.
from a customer perspective
Mhm,
that will bring value for them, or savings for them.
mhm,
So
mhm.
uh, that's how we
Yeah.
got about to thinking about that. And then
Yeah.
um, uh, if there's stop me at any
Mhm,
time, because
mhm.
just a couple of slides,
Yeah.
and then yeah.
No problem. I
So
think I'll
mhm,
take you back a little bit to when you were talking about the communicating like things like extra fees or surcharges transparently. And like it reminds me of, the whole topic of design ethics, for example, and how sometimes businesses are incentivized to kind of like compromise a little bit on their experience and hide some things. We've heard of this big debate with Airbnb hiding the cleaning fees.
mhm,
And then you get to check out and you see, hey, there's a $300 cleaning fee.
yeah,
So how are some ways I think that designers can push back against,
yeah,
um, you know,
yeah,
the temptation, to like hide, things that benefit the business, but inherently like,
mhm,
um, cause a little bit of friction for the customers. So how do we like, advocate
yeah,
for the experience in light in a at a point where we have like maybe a conflicting interest with business?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think uh, people always need to understand, like, your customers aren't Your customers are clever,
Yeah.
because well, it depends with industry on industry,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
in certain aspects. The reason I'm saying that, like for the e-commerce side of things, whereby you have so many other competitors providing
Mm-hmm.
almost similar aspects,
Mm-hmm.
they know what everyone else is
Yeah.
providing. They
Yeah.
are trying to get the
The
best
best
deal
deal.
as possible. Um, so whatever charge you're trying to hide somewhere, it will be seen.
Yeah.
And at the time that they're seeing that, they'll be like,
Yeah.
"Unachukulia aje? How are you
Mm-hmm.
seeing me, right?"
Yeah.
And even as you said with the Airbnb example, right?
Yeah.
Um, Customers are aware of that. They
Yeah.
reach to that point. They'll see, oh, there's a cleaning
Mm-hmm.
fee, and
Yeah.
I think I saw to someone, why do I
Mm-hmm.
have to leave the house clean if there's
Mm-hmm.
already a cleaning fee, right?
Actually, exactly. Yeah.
So they leave the house in
Yeah.
whichever way.
Yeah.
Obviously, that will create
Mm-hmm.
a negative experience for the host,
Mm-hmm.
and just continue, have negative effects down the lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you're upfront with some of these charges, and
Mm-hmm.
um, communicate why this particular charge is so,
Mm-hmm.
and package it in a way that the customer doesn't feel as if this is an inconvenience to them, but in a
Mm-hmm.
way that it's elevating the experience, then
Mm-hmm.
um, you'll most likely win over the customer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One example that comes to mind is how Little Cab, there's a time they used to communicate while
Mm-hmm.
their prices seem a bit higher than
Mm.
what you'll find on Bolt or
Yeah.
Uber. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and this was an email from the CEO, I believe, and just how he explained
Mm-hmm.
their costs, and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they want to do right by the driver,
Mm-hmm.
and so that one won me over. Like I was like,
Mm.
if you feel like it should be using
Yeah.
Little Cup more.
Yeah.
So if you are more upfront in your charges, you're tying it to the customer needs,
Mm-hmm.
or uh, desire for them to get value,
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So how do
Yeah.
you win over the business? I think that
Mm-hmm.
was the second part of that question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whether research, you find that certain places have is like extensive research, um,
Mm.
articles for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think with Google does a lot of customer insights, right? That
Mm-hmm.
are useful. You can use that. You can leverage on that.
Yeah.
Show
Mm-hmm.
actual stats of proper research done, whereby someone else went with this particular
Yeah.
wrong approach of hiding the
Mm-hmm.
fees, or
Mm-hmm.
hiding how to unscribe and so on. And someone else
Exactly.
went with a very straightforward, clear, and open way.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the business impact out of that, right?
Impact. Mm-hmm.
And if you're still insistent, then have it
Mm-hmm.
as separate hypotheses that you can test with a limited number of customers, with clear set
Mm-hmm.
objectives from the
Mm-hmm.
start. And yeah, the results of
That's
that should hopefully settle that
right.
fully. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something I've noticed also when talking a lot with nine designers. Like they like to see data, they like to see numbers, they like to see it's
Yeah.
like evidence. Like, hey, you're saying this that this will affect me in 10 years' time. How,
Uh-huh.
show me an example. And I think
Yeah.
losing your customers' trust may not,
Yeah.
necessarily lose you money now, but in the next 10 years, the
Yeah.
cumulative effect of lots of customers losing trust with
Yeah.
you because of your practices and a bad experience adds up. Yeah.
Very true.
I think
So
that's
it's
really,
very important to constantly
yeah.
collect the
Mm-hmm.
customer feedback, have your CSATs running,
Mm-hmm.
and get to the reasons as to why maybe you've been rated low. Do this
Yeah.
periodically. Don't have,
Mm.
oh, our CSAT for the year is at
Yeah.
this high, but compare
Yeah.
it month by month or quarterly
Mm,
by quarterly, because certain actions you've
mhm,
done in this quarter probably have led
mm.
to a decline or probably led to an incline. So
Yeah,
it's important to keep on
that's
measuring
true. And it
that.
ties
Yeah.
back to your voice of the customer segment when you're talking about all these people that are in touch with the customer.
Yeah.
This is something we should always have a pulse on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Uh, it's extremely important.
Great.
Yeah. Then
Mm-hmm.
this may feel from
Mm-hmm.
a very marketing aspect,
Mm-hmm.
but there are also key aspects that are useful for the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So initially, the product card
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
simple in this particular approach.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with the simple approach.
Mm-hmm.
Big advocate for simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also want to consider in the current environment, how you're able to communicate why someone should go for this particular product versus this other product. Because remember, the what's out of stock in the shop is flour. Maybe not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily just ajab, right? So they're
Mm-hmm.
coming that they're hoping to compare, they're hoping to see why should I
Mm-hmm.
go for this product versus a product,
Mm-hmm.
and things like is this one on offer?
Mm-hmm.
Is this what's trending? So, like in this particular
Yeah.
aspect, the fact that this seems to have being bought a lot in my area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The fact that probably this is running out, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
there's certain customers that I have who will only take a job if you give them
Yeah.
X or 210 or
Mm-hmm.
anything else, they would go for that, right? So the fact
Mm-hmm.
that there's this particular information will help
Mm-hmm.
them in making that purchase decision, because they
Mm-hmm.
probably see this and maybe they have two or three ajab and then okay, maybe I
Mm-hmm.
can order later, but the fact that they're saying, oh, this may be running out soon,
Mm-hmm.
let me ensure I get that. And
That's
you
true.
need to ensure that all this information is
Mm-hmm.
true. So don't do evil design whereby you
Yeah.
constantly have timers of
Mm-hmm.
something running out,
Mm-hmm.
or because people will see through that. They'll be like, hey,
Yeah.
this is always
Every day.
200
Yeah.
shillings off.
Mm-hmm.
So then the
Exactly.
moment they start doubting, it just spoils all
Yeah.
your other deals that you'll hope to run, because they'll be like,
Exactly.
you're just increasing the price to bring an
Mm-hmm.
illusion of a
False
deal.
urgency. Yeah.
Yeah, or yeah, fast
Mm-hmm.
urgency in the
Yeah.
scenario of running out and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
and also better
Mm-hmm.
visuals. You'll find market
Mm-hmm.
one will read the name, but they'll also
Mm-hmm.
look at the image. So when you have the
Mm-hmm.
image reinforcing some of that name
Mm-hmm.
aspect, like because
Mm-hmm.
if you look at Ajab image, you may not tell whether it's 1 kg or 2 kg. They usually look
Mm-hmm.
the same, right? So
Yeah.
reinforcing that information in the images
Mm-hmm.
also helps ensure that the customer is buying the right thing that they're
Mm-hmm.
intended to, versus
Mm-hmm.
when the delivery comes, they, oh, I wanted the 2 kg one, not the 1 kg
Yeah.
one. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have a whole return process, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, obviously at that time the customer may go for opens up the chance that they may go for to a competitor, uh,
Mm-hmm.
or feel that it was your problem versus mine. It's just a
Exactly.
negative situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
Yeah, and then just the other areas that this is just an example, somewhere whereby we may not uh, look a lot into. Yeah, uh,
Mm-hmm.
so the basket page, the empty basket page is also an entry point for placing an order,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
how you design that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to ensure that you still have that aspect of considering the
Mm-hmm.
business and the customer needs.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have on this other side is just somewhere setting the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, truly, your basket is empty,
Yeah.
and I think in this particular situation,
Mm-hmm.
we were mentioning that look at some of our recommendations, but there aren't recommendations, and I think here
Mm-hmm.
it's because this is a new customer, so
Mhm.
the algorithm was picking off recommendations based on what
Mhm.
that customer had previously bought. So if no one
Mhm.
had an order in the first place, then they wouldn't have recommendations, right? So
Mhm.
how do you change that to ensure, regardless of whether you're a new customer or an existing customers, when you
Mhm.
land on this page, there's value that we're providing for you.
Mhm.
So remember, the minute someone finished the order, the last place that they were in was in the basket page, right?
Yeah.
So someone may be going back to see. What's the update
Mhm.
for my order, right? So
Mhm.
tied it back with where the customer left off
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
experience, right? So in
Mhm.
that case, for customers who've placed orders in the past and there's no current order, then that could be an entry
Mhm.
point for them to see previous orders. And for those who've just recently placed an order that's being still being fulfilled, then that's a great
Mhm.
area to still communicate the status
Mhm.
of that particular order. So
Yeah.
uh, it
Mhm.
feels like, oh, my last interaction with you, so it's
Mm.
a continuation of the same. And
Yeah.
then below that, instead of stating the obvious, and this is just us critiquing work that we've done in the past.
Yeah.
uh, you could have copy
Mhm.
that is leading the customer to an
Mhm.
action, right? They want to
Mhm.
add items to start their order. So uh,
Mhm.
and below that, then ensuring that the wordings that you use are
Mhm.
uh, in line with what the customer usually says. The customer is coming to a soko to restock, so then
Mhm.
say that instead of probably saying, I don't know,
Mhm.
buy again or recommendations. Just
Mhm.
it's best to use words that are aligned with the particular customer. And
Mhm.
since you have data, leverage that data. So if this
Yeah.
customer is in Kasarani,
Mhm.
then use data as a way of
Mhm.
assisting them in making the best decision for their business, right? So
Mhm.
instead of
Mhm.
just having a popular list and here just pushing um, products with no particular
Mhm.
specification or just from market perspective, it could be more accurate. What's really popular in Kasarani or selling fast in that
Mhm.
particular area,
Mhm.
because your intention is for the customer to,
Mhm.
if they sell faster, then they buy
Mhm.
faster from you, and
That's
that's
right.
it's a win-win situation, right? So
Mhm.
leverage that business data that you have.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, that's
and
interesting.
then
Mhm.
finally, I think here's just an example of an MVP approach for
Mhm.
collecting feedback, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
um,
Could you zoom
let's-
in a little bit?
let me
Just
see.
so
Um,
we can use the control plus.
is
Yeah,
this
there we are. Yeah.
okay? So
Mhm.
the moment that an order has been placed and
Mm.
it's successful, celebrate that. I think in the
Mhm.
background you're seeing some bit of animation gif.
Mhm.
Then ask yourself,
Mm.
what's the next step? So usually, this is a point whereby one is likely to reciprocate in a
Mhm.
positive
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
And as such, it's a good opportunity to ask for feedback. So I
Mhm.
was saying that this is an MVP approach.
Mm.
So to implement it, either you build internally a customer feedback
Mhm.
tool or process.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's costly because there's so much
Mm.
involved in customer feedback.
Yeah.
Or you've probably rightfully opted to purchase a
Mhm.
third party plugin.
Yeah.
But at times, if that hasn't happened yet,
Mhm.
the need is still there. So how
Mhm.
can you safely get to provisioning for that need?
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to have conversations with
Mhm.
engineering. You learn
Mhm.
from engineering. Probably Firebase has
Mm.
events.
Mhm.
that they're tracking. So like an event like order placed,
Mhm.
and that
Mhm.
can fire up a bottom sheet,
Mhm.
and then you can leverage simple tool like uh, Google Forms for that particular aspect.
Mhm.
Then and the beauty of Google Forms, you can even do a bit of uh,
Mhm.
conditional statements like in this
Mhm.
particular aspect.
Mhm.
If someone say is anything that's within the negative aspect, then
Mhm.
ask questions around that, and if anyone says something within the
Mhm.
positive aspects, try and
Mhm.
find out, okay, what exactly was positive then.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and you just close the loop. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Ensure you have a way of reaching back to that customer, and
Mhm.
in case someone needed to contact you, then also still provide that particular
Mhm.
information. And
Yeah.
so, you know, this would be something that will be implemented swiftly
Mhm.
by your engineering team. Most
Yeah.
likely, you'd have pushback on this because this is
Mhm.
probably a one day type of
Mhm.
task
Yeah.
for someone to implement. So,
That's
and
true.
if you've already done the form, the
Mhm.
only bit of work has been done is the
Yeah.
instrumentation. So, uh,
Exactly.
also constantly thinking of how can
Yeah.
you get people to a point of swiftly saying yes.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
That's
and
true.
I think that's
I'm
even
a
more the
really big
next
fan
point.
of.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm a really big fan of having this like sort of like in-app or in context survey,
Yeah.
where like you can use like personally I like to use Hotjar and you have
Uh
that,
huh.
hey, how was your booking experience out of
Yeah.
1 to 5, something like that. Simple, like it
Hmm.
doesn't give you as much like call data like this specific form, but it's like a
Hmm.
good starting point and it's a very low effort for your customer as well. So yeah, I
Yeah.
like I like to include something like this as
Exactly.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, where you can get like super low effort,
Mhm.
like that example you've given,
Mhm.
definitely go for that.
Yeah.
Where there's a bit of a process, then um, mostly ensure that you're introducing that at a point where the customer is likely to do so.
Mhm.
If you introduce this
Mhm.
when they're coming in to place their next order,
Yeah.
the customer will be like, this is
I don't have
distracting.
time for this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's taking me
Yeah.
away from my goal.
Yeah.
And you can have attrition at that point of starting the order
True.
placement, right? And or say if
Yeah.
you're constantly asking every order they place, you're asking
Mhm.
for this particular feedback, then progressively
Mhm.
it becomes annoying. So
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
it's important then to find at what time, at
Mhm.
what rate do you need to collect feedback,
That's
at what
yeah.
level of verboseness.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because you notice, I think in this particular example, only
Mhm.
this question is mandatory, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So someone can say, just say very bad and go to the
Mhm.
very end. That's still
Mhm.
helpful for us. We can dig
Exactly.
deeper with that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's true. Do you have any recommendations for tools, for third-party tools we can use for this kind of
Hotjar
section?
is a very great one for web.
Yeah.
I think on the side
Yeah.
of mobile, I think
Mm.
Hotjar doesn't work for mobile apps.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
on the mobile app side, UXCam is a good tool.
Mhm.
Has session replays as well,
Mhm.
which is an
Mhm.
additional um, like super useful item. Session replays whereby
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
anonymized uh, uh, collection of the
Yeah.
of
It's like
showing
little
that
snippets
how.
of videos of how
Yes,
people are
yes.
engaging with
Yeah, with
the
your app. Yeah,
your app.
and that can really scale
Mhm.
up your research work, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't have to do observations for all your
Mhm.
customers. You
Mhm.
can sample the different session replays that have been
Yeah.
recorded. So UXCam, Smart Look as well is
Mhm. That's okay.
also has a good free tier to
Mhm.
start off with. Then yeah, other than those,
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
the Google Forms is still a good tool.
Yeah.
Um, there's
Mhm.
another one that I've trying to remember. Nudge now is
Nudge.
also a good tool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Nudge now falls in the place of tools like Pendo.
Mm-hmm.
It's tools that allow you to do to interject within the customer's flow
Mm-hmm.
without billing those tools for those particular interjections. What do I mean
Mm-hmm.
by that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it will listen to an event and then it can pop
Mm-hmm.
up either an onboarding guide
Yeah.
um,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
a tooltip, as such
Mm-hmm.
things. So Nudge now and
Yeah.
uh, Pendo esque type of tools will
Mm-hmm.
assist in that particular purpose. I
Nice.
think they can also do
Yeah.
these type of surveys as well.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Um,
I think we can move to the
then
next
just
one.
there's yeah, just the final bit of that. So you've done all
Mm-hmm.
this design. You have a proper Figma, something that
Mm-hmm.
is showing all these different comparisons. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll get
Mm-hmm.
into the details of that, but just showing snippets of this.
Yeah.
You want to present this to your
Mm-hmm.
the people who will build. So usually this is
Mm-hmm.
the product tree of your PM and
Mm-hmm.
engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps to share beforehand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the file, you start with the key objectives. Initially start with the
Mm-hmm.
business objectives that this will be contributing to, and your assumptions of
Mm-hmm.
how this will improve that.
Mm-hmm.
Then have references to the research work that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Probably here you may want to share like key
Mm-hmm.
statements that was
Mm-hmm.
that the customers mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
so you can highlight that, but mostly have that as maybe as a single slide or a single section. And if someone wants
Mm-hmm.
to dig deeper, they can go to the files that you shared, and then
Mm-hmm.
show that. Flow of the
Mm-hmm.
previous and now. um,
Mm-hmm.
what's the difference, what's the value that you're
Mm-hmm.
creating with this new solution. And
Mm-hmm.
once you've done that, probably this is a super huge solution. So at the
Mm-hmm.
very end, I'm sure you've broken down to saying, okay, probably we can start with this bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's low hanging, but it has
Mm-hmm.
the highest amount of reward for the business and the user. So, uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and once you've done that, you share that beforehand. You've, when necessary, you've booked a meeting. Within that meeting, ensure there is alignment on what will be built.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
uh, don't go into that meeting. Oh, I just want to show the good
Yeah.
work that I've done,
Yeah.
and then wash off your hands. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
End that meeting with commitments from your stakeholders, because that's the only way
Mm-hmm.
to be sure that this would get thrown into a
Mm.
skeleton, like would
Yeah.
be what do you call? I usually call it a cupboard of skeletons of your
Ah,
ideas,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
It's like, that's nice. Okay. See it
Yeah,
next week.
so
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to, okay, you want the
Mm-hmm.
PM to say, oh, but yeah, based on this, it ties well with
Mm-hmm.
uh, the roadmap. I think we can do it in this
Mm-hmm.
particular week. You want the engineering manager to say, okay, yeah, I know
Mm-hmm.
who and who
Mm-hmm.
will be able to take this up.
Mm-hmm.
Or the mobile dev or whoever the devs that's
Mm-hmm.
involved in the particular meeting to say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
or check on the components that you've shared and what needs to be
Mm-hmm.
updated and so on. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so ensure there is a clear next steps
Mm-hmm.
for everyone who is involved, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why you need that's what I'm saying, you need the
Yeah.
key stakeholders, people who can
Mm-hmm.
put thumbs on this and
Mm-hmm.
ensure their next steps to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you have like any strategies for talking to these stakeholders to ensure your design doesn't end up in the skeleton closet, as you eloquently put it? Do you have any?
um
Uh-huh.
I think first of all, if you started all
Mm,
this with from a business perspective, and
mm,
everyone there in the company is
mm,
exists to ensure that the business wins and succeeds, right? So if
Mhm.
you're starting from that point, then that's already good. Then
Mhm.
secondly, you need to know your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of optics
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
play. There's and different listening
Mhm.
styles and so on.
Mhm.
So if you're presenting up, say to the C level and so on, then
Mhm.
you may not have a slides as long as this one. You may just have one
Mhm.
key brief with the key metrics. Um,
Mhm.
but then you have all your other documents ready because they may want to
Mhm.
dig deeper. But
Yeah.
um, i- it's a very metric
Mhm.
esque type of
Yeah.
documentation that you have ready.
Yeah.
And then if it's the product trio that you're working with,
Mhm.
uh, ensure that it's aligned with their objectives, right? You know,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
PM wants to uh, uh, be the PM that has shipped features that
Mhm.
has created, a lot of business value.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
uh, if you're showing him how this will create business value, how this will be done within, you know, their quarter or
Yeah.
whatever their timeline of their roadmap is,
Mhm.
then you're already speaking his language,
Mhm.
right?
That's true.
For the developer, if he's keen on ensuring that
Mm.
uh, they're delivering, up to date
Mhm.
type of
Mhm.
software that's solidly built and so on.
Mhm.
Find ways that you're communicating
Yeah.
to their particular goal. So everyone
Yeah.
has a goal.
I
Everyone
agree.
has different optics to play. So
Mhm.
get a sense of that and
Mhm.
um, tailor your communication in
Mhm.
that aspect.
True.
An advice I got from my previous boss,
Mhm.
someone I work with nowadays, you're
Mhm.
not. It's not like you're becoming a chameleon per se.
Yeah.
In actual
Yeah.
sense, my tone right now as I'm
Yeah.
speaking to you, Charity, is
Mhm.
because of how we know each other.
Yeah.
How I speak to my wife will be very
Mm.
different. How I speak to
Yeah.
my father will be very different,
Yeah.
right? So we already do that in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
So similarly, there's a need to do that also in the business space because you're
Mhm.
not speaking to
Mhm.
the same people,
The
so
same
you can't
person.
be
Yeah.
vanilla. You need to
Mhm.
uh, strive as much as possible to recognize how does the other
Mm.
person listen,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how do you win them over, and then tailor your
Yeah.
communication to that. Yeah.
That's really good. Knowing who's in the room, knowing,
Mhm.
what are they looking to achieve out of, this engagement that
Yes.
you're having. I think that's super important. I think just to add on that,
Exactly.
another thing that I find
Uh-huh.
usually makes my work really easy is like during the process, including them, during the research,
Mm.
like you can create checkpoints for them to provide input and feedback and just so they feel like they're part of the outcome and it's not like you've
Yeah.
done all this work and then at the end you're
Yeah.
presenting them with a final design, a prototype, research body, and they had no idea that this was going on. So I think
Exactly.
just to
Exactly.
add on
Yeah.
what you're saying,
Hmm.
just to involve them earlier and get a gut check, gut feel before you proceed. Yeah,
Very true.
yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
a tool for that usually share like a concept brief,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's like a design initiated project or something.
Mm-hmm.
Have a concept brief that
Yeah.
um, at a very high level
Mm-hmm.
specifies, oh, this is a problem that you've identified in
Mm-hmm.
your in your research work or
Yeah.
in your interactions with
Mm-hmm.
customers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the potential solutions,
Mm-hmm.
uh, or not necessarily potential solutions, but the potential
Mm-hmm.
business objectives
Mm-hmm.
that will be improved if you're to solve this particular problem, right?
Yeah.
So that just a one pager
Yeah.
that we've shared and um, your potential timelines of when
Mm-hmm.
you'll have something to present to
Mm-hmm.
them that will also help in
Mm-hmm.
that early stage
Yeah.
communication and knowing whether you're in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. The right
Yeah,
track. Yeah,
yeah,
that sounds super important. Like if you have a template, I'd be very happy to add a link to that also in the description.
Yeah,
if you
I'll
can share
share at the end of the
that.
call. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that
Um,
sounds fantastic. Thank you so much. I think
yeah,
this
and I think
is
that's about it pertaining
yeah.
this particular case study. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was fantastic. You've taken us through the entire like design journey, and
Hmm.
how you approach it. You've told us how you mitigate for risk and how you collaborate with your peers. And I think that's going to be super important to everyone that's watching. And yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this really insightful conversation. And it's always a pleasure to collaborate with you with anything. I know we worked together at Wasoko, and I don't know why I forgot to
Yeah.
to mention this in the intro. And thank you so much for the continuous number of chances you've kept giving me, and now the chances you're giving the Product Champ community that we're building here. And I can't wait to have you back soon. So, do you have anything you want to promote, and where can people find you?
um,
Hmm.
yeah, also, I'd like to say thanks for hosting me. Super privileged
Yeah.
to be on this platform with you. Yeah, and I also hope to grow through the content that you share on Production. What to plug? Check out Elevity,
Yeah.
elevity.co. If you have a project that you need to scale to
Mm-hmm.
market,
Mm-hmm.
a group of really talented product
Mm-hmm.
professionals that can assist you in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then yeah, I'm also on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
You can connect there. I think Charity will also share my email.
Yeah.
It's within the presentation that I've just
Mm-hmm.
gone through. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'll link all the links, the resources you mentioned, all your profiles and the email. Everything will be down in the description, so people
Thanks
can
a
reach out
lot.
to you if they need to. All right. So a huge shout out to everyone that's watching and has stuck through to the end of the video. If you found this helpful or you have any questions, you can feel free to dump them in the comments below. And don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And see you soon. Bye bye. All right.